Let's go through this strategy guide for Croix, I don't know how you say it, but it's the Group 1 prototype series. Once again, for this one, we're going to use our Toyota GR010. It has great top speed, really good fuel efficiency. Both of these things are critical to be fast at this race. Another thing that's important, I'm going to start on the racing medium tyres, is I think you need to be fast at the start of this race. There is a driver in this race, Wilk, and he has great pace but gets held up at the start of the race. At the start, you need to make sure you catch as fast as you can to get into the lead as early as you can. For this race, I found it better to do one stop. It might be possible to do a no stop, but the pit lane loss isn't too bad. We're going to start off this race on the racing medium tyres and pit a little bit earlier than half race distance, and for that we're actually going to be on fuel mixture 4. We still need to be fuel efficient, but we want to catch the leading group as fast as we can. As you can see on the leaderboard, Wilk is the danger man in this race, but he's not even in the top 3 yet. He's going to be held up by those other AI drivers, and we need to be catching him as soon as we can. Make the most of him being caught in traffic, catch while we can, and then once we're ahead of him on the track, then we can control this race. So maybe this is my first tip, I don't know, but you need to learn this track. It's quite a difficult track, and getting track familiar will really help you to close that gap in the early stages of the race. So put a little bit of time into learning the way this track drives. Any of the high top speed cars like the Peugeot 908 should be really good here. My Toyota GR010 with the medium turbocharger is absolutely fantastic. It's got amazing top speed, and as you can see, opening this race on the racing medium tyres is really giving us a nice grip advantage to really carve our way through the pack early on. Because the top speeds at this track are so high at the end of some of the most significant straights, then you're going to need to be on the brakes quite early. So at the end of the back straight, at the end of the front straight, you need to be looking around the 200-meter board to be on the brakes. A lot of cars you can brake a little bit later, but with this Toyota, we've got so much top speed. On the long straights, we need to be braking at least the 200 board. And again, we're a little bit deep on the brakes there, not really understanding how much speed this car has. Skipping forwards now, end of lap number 1, starting lap number 2, and we're going to be really catching the leaders now. And you can see Wilk is still stuck in 3rd place. He is in that Peugeot VGT car, that car right there in front of us. If he gets to the front, then he can really start to stretch his legs, but as you can see, we're going to make the most of him being stuck in traffic and get to the front of this race really early. Another tip for this race is, if he gets to the front early, you will have difficulty catching him. It's better just to restart the race. He doesn't start near the front of the grid, and it is down to the way that AI get through the field. If he gets to the front early, he can be very difficult to catch, especially in the final sector. Look at the gap coming down through the final sector. He's gaining almost 3 to 4 seconds on us through this final sector, and that's on us setting a fastest lap of the race. When he is stuck in traffic, he cannot produce those fantastic sector times in those corners, so that's why it's very important to get your pace nailed early on in this race. So start out hard, go on the medium tyres and really make it happen. End of lap number 3 is when I will make my pit stop. About 4 seconds is the distance we have to 2nd place. Let's see how that plays out as we exit the pits. It's a pretty quick pit stop at this track. Switching to the racing hard tyres is important, and I'm going to fill the car to the top just to make sure I've got enough fuel to get to the end of the race if I didn't need to use a higher fuel map. Another thing to note, caution on pit exit, and also other drivers exiting the pits. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but you can see the gap after we've got around the first corner is about 7-ish seconds, so I think it's about 11 seconds lost in the pits, which is a pretty quick pit stop. Skipping forwards, end of lap number 4, and Wilk is going to make his pit stop. He's going to be on soft tyres. That might explain his speed around some of the faster sections of the track, but Wilk is in the pits. I'm going to gain the lead of this race by nature of him pitting, and we're both on equal pit stops. Be cautious down the main straight. Do not go across this line, because cars just appear out the pit lane. They don't drive out the pit lane, they just appear in front of you on the track. It's better just to avoid that pit lane exit, sweep back over to the outside of the track to take the corner after you've cleared that zone there. By this point in the race, all you've got to do is run out the race in clean and consistent laps. I set my fuel mixture down to 5 just to give me that overhead if I needed to boost the car towards the end of the race. The drivers who can potentially beat me are behind me on the track, so they're going to need to pass me to get into the lead of this race. We're on racing hard tyres to finish the race. A little bit less grip than you had at the start of the race, but you know they'll last the distance. So it's a case of just hitting your apexes, being clean, calm, consistent, and getting to the end of the race, which in this example is exactly what I didn't do. Pushing for a fastest lap on the hard tyres, upping the fuel mixture to 3 just to get a little bit more speed out the car. We're just going to run a bit too deep into the final sections of the track, get a bit too greedy on throttle on corner exit and just write the car off. Completely unforced error. I'm a long way ahead of second place. Don't lose your concentration. Once you're past the halfway point, once all the pit stops have played out, just run consistent lap times, get it to the finish line. And by the end of the race, not listening to any of my own advice, I bumped up the fuel mixture, ran it quick to the end of the lap, and I actually set the lap record on the final lap of the race, almost lapping the driver in 20th place. But the advice is to do as I say, not as I do, and you'll be all set to win this race with no problems at all. Again, as we said in my Daytona video, you can just set the difficulty to be medium or easy. It won't affect you in any way. You'll still get the same payout. You'll still get the menu book award. If you have enjoyed this video or found it useful in any way, hit that like button. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. On screen right now will be a link to a video which you may find interesting or useful in any way. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.